I haven't felt my manhood in 3 years. Until I met you. What did you do to me?
The Mafia boss wept, his voice cracking under the weight of a miracle he never thought he'd witness. Baek Sun-woo was dead below the waist. 3 years since the poisoning that stole every sensation and turned Seoul's most feared king into a man of silent despair. His empire obeyed him, yet his own body betrayed him until she walked in. Lola Vance. His new secretary. Curved sin, skin like midnight silk, and something impossible woke inside him. A spark, a pulse, a threat. She doesn't know it yet, but she is about to rewrite his fate and ignite his ruin. Welcome to Afro-Korean Soul Tales, besties. Stay until the very end, because this story will have you swooning from start to finish. The wind in Seoul didn't just blow, it bit. It was a sharp, aggressive thing that whipped around the corners of the Tehran-Aro district, carrying the scent of exhaust and distant snow. Lola Vance stood at the base of the OBS tower, a monolith of black glass and chrome that pierced the gray winter sky like a jagged knife. It was the tallest building in the district, a fortress of wealth that seemed to look down on the rest of the city with cold indifference. Lola smoothed down her pencil skirt for what felt like the 100th time, her palms damp against the charcoal fabric. She had bought the suit specifically for this interview, spending money she didn't really have on a label she couldn't really afford, hoping it would make her look like the kind of woman who belonged in a building like this. But as she caught her reflection in the towering glass doors, she felt a familiar pang of insecurity. The skirt was tailored, professional, but against her body, a landscape of unapologetic curves, heavy breasts, and thick thighs, it felt like a casing she was about to burst out of. In a city of waif-like silhouettes, sharp angles, and muted tones, Lola felt like an abundance of color in a monochrome world. Her skin was a deep, rich umber that seemed to absorb the weak winter light, and her presence took up space in a way that often made people in this city stare. "You can do this, Lola," she whispered to herself, the steam from her breath vanishing instantly into the cold air. "It's just a job. It's just a man." But it wasn't just a job. It was the lifeline she desperately needed. And he wasn't just a man. She had heard the rumors in the expat cafes and the hushed whispers at the employment agency. Baek Sun-woo, the CEO of Baek Corporation. The man who owned half the shipping routes in the Pacific and, if the darker rumors were true, held the leash of the Seoul underworld. They called him the Ice Prince. Ruthless. Asexual. A machine in a bespoke suit. They said he hadn't smiled since the incident 3 years ago. They said he fired secretaries for breathing too loudly. They said he was a monster. Lola took a breath that rattled in her chest, pushed through the heavy revolving doors, and stepped into the air-conditioned silence of the lobby. The noise of the city vanished instantly, replaced by the soft hum of expensive ventilation and the click-clack of heels on marble. The lobby was vast, designed to make you feel small. The receptionist, a woman with a face carved from porcelain and eyes that revealed nothing, barely looked up from her computer screen before pointing a manicured finger toward the executive elevators. 55th floor. Do not stop on the way up. The ascent was dizzying. As the numbers climbed on the digital display, 30, 40, 50, Lola's heart hammered a frantic, syncopated rhythm against her ribs. She pressed her hand over her chest, trying to calm the palpitations. She thought of her mother back in London, sitting in that drafty flat, the pile of medical bills growing like a tumor on the kitchen table. She thought of the student loans that were suffocating her. This salary was triple what she had made at her last position. Triple. It was freedom. It was survival. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, revealing a sanctuary of minimalism. No warmth. No clutter. Just marble floors that looked like frozen lakes and abstract art on the walls that screamed isolation. "Miss Vance." The voice was crisp, belonging to a middle-aged woman with steel-rimmed glasses perched on the end of her nose. She stood behind a sleek white desk, looking at Lola with a mixture of appraisal and dismissal. This was Ms. Pyo, the legendary office manager who guarded Baek Sun-woo like a dragon guarding gold. "I am Ms. Pyo. Mr. Baek is expecting you," she said, checking her watch. "You're exactly on time. Do not make him wait." He dislikes inefficiency more than he dislikes failure. And keep your answer short. He does not like chatter. Understood, Lola said, her voice steadier than she felt. She clutched her leather portfolio to her chest like a shield and walked toward the massive double mahogany doors at the end of the hall. They looked heavy enough to hold back a flood. She paused for a fraction of a second, gathered her courage, and knocked. 2 sharp raps. Enter. The voice was a low rumble of thunder, deep and vibrating through the wood. It wasn't a shout, but it carried a weight that made the floorboards tremble. Lola pushed the heavy door open and stepped into the most luxurious, terrifying office she had ever seen. The room was cavernous, dominated by floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the Han River and the sprawling city beyond. But the view was instantly forgotten. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Behind a desk the size of a small car sat Baek Sun-woo. He was looking down at a dossier, a fountain pen poised in his hand. The first thing that struck her was the sharpness of him. His jawline could cut glass, his hair was a sweep of ink-black perfection, styled back to reveal a high, aristocratic forehead. He wore a charcoal suit that fit his broad shoulders so perfectly it looked like it had been sewn onto his body. He was devastatingly handsome, but in the way a winter storm is beautiful, terrifying, distant, and capable of destruction. He didn't look up. He continued to read, his pen scratching aggressively against the paper. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Lola stood awkwardly in the center of the room, unsure if she should speak or wait. "Mr. Baek," she finally ventured, her voice soft. "I'm Lola Vance. I'm here for the—" He lifted his head. The air left the room. It wasn't just a look, it was a collision. Sun-woo's eyes, dark and abyssal, locked onto hers. For a split second, time seemed to warp, stretching and bending around them. For Baek Sun-woo, the world had been grayscale for 1,095 days. 3 years of silence. 3 years since the neurotoxin administered by his rival, Jang Do-han, had burned through his veins, leaving his nervous system in a permanent state of winter. He commanded armies of men, moved billions of won with a single signature, yet he couldn't feel the warmth of the sun, the taste of food was ash in his mouth, and the stirrings of desire were a distant memory. He was a ghost haunting his own life, a king with a dead kingdom between his legs. But then, she walked in. It hit him like a physical blow to the chest, a sledgehammer cracking the ice. Color flooded his vision. The emerald green of her silk blouse, the rich, deep umber of her skin that looked like poured coffee, the terrified flutter of her pulse visible in the hollow of her neck. And then, the impossible happened. A spark. A jolt of electricity arced down his spine, bypassing the damaged nerves, ignoring the medical diagnosis and pooling heavy, hot, and undeniable in his lower abdomen. His grip on the fountain pen tightened. The plastic barrel snapped with a sharp crack. Ink bled onto his fingers, staining his pristine skin black, but he didn't feel the mess. He only felt her. His heart, a dormant engine, roared to life, slamming against his ribs with a violence that made him dizzy. Blood rushed through his veins, surging downward. He was hard. Instantly, painfully, undeniably hard. It was a medical impossibility. It was a miracle. It was terrifying. "Sir?" Lola's voice trembled, pulling him back from the precipice. She took a half step back, clearly unsettled by the intensity of his stare. Are you okay?" Sun-woo realized his mouth was slightly parted, his breath coming in shallow rasps. He looked down at the ink staining his hand, then back at her. He needed to ground himself. He needed to make this stop, or maybe, he needed to make sure it never stopped. His brain couldn't process the data. Why her? Why now? "Sit," he commanded, his voice rougher than gravel, sounding foreign to his own ears. Lola hurried to the leather chair opposite him and sank into it, crossing her legs. The sound of her nylon stockings brushing together was deafening in the silent room, a soft swish that sent another wave of heat crashing over him. "You're late," he lied. She wasn't. She was exactly on time. He just needed to say something, anything, to assert control over a situation that was spiraling into chaos. I apologize, Mr. Baek. I was told I was on time, Lola stammered, her eyes wide. Your file. He held out his unsoiled hand. He needed to look at paper. He needed to look at anything other than the curve of her lip or the way her chest rose and fell with her anxious breathing. Lola handed him her resume. Her fingers brushed against his. Zap. The contact was electric. Sun-woo flinched as if he'd been burned, snatching the paper away. Lola pulled her hand back, looking hurt. He pretended to read. London School of Economics. Fluent in French, English, Korean. Top of her class. 5 years of executive management. The words swam before his eyes. All he could focus on was her scent, something warm and complex, like vanilla, rain, and something inherently Lola, drifting across the desk, invading his sterile sanctuary. Why are you here? He asked, his voice low and dangerous. He dropped the paper and looked at her again. In Seoul. In my office. Why would a woman with these credentials work as a secretary? Lola straightened her spine. The fear in her eyes was replaced by a flicker of steel. I wanted a challenge, Mr. Baek. London was safe. I don't want safe. I want to build something. And your company, it controls the flow of the entire region. I want to be where the power is. Sun-woo leaned back, the expensive leather of his chair creaking under his shifting weight. She wanted power. She had no idea she held the only power that mattered right now. She had resurrected the dead. The hours are brutal, he said, testing her. I am not a kind boss. I demand perfection. You will travel with me. You will eat when I eat. You will work until I tell you to stop. You will be an extension of my will. Can you handle that? Lola met his gaze, and for the first time, she didn't flinch. She looked him dead in the eye. I didn't cross an ocean to work 9 to 5, Mr. Baek. I can handle you. The double meaning hung in the air, heavy and intoxicating. Sun-woo felt a bead of sweat trickle down his back. You're hired, he said abruptly. Lola blinked, stunned by the suddenness of it. Now? But surely there are other candidates? The HR processing. I am HR, Sun-woo said, standing up. He towered over the desk, a monolith of charcoal wool and repressed energy. Welcome to Baek Corp, Ms. Vance. Report to Ms. Pyo immediately. You start now. Thank you, sir, Lola breathed, standing up on shaky legs. She turned and fled the office, her heels clicking rapidly on the floor as if she were escaping a predator. She was. As soon as the heavy door clicked shut, Sun-woo collapsed back into his chair. He looked at his hand, still stained with ink. He was shaking. The King of Seoul was shaking. He grabbed his phone, his fingers trembling as he punched in a number on his private line. Mr. Baek? The voice on the other end was calm, clinical. It was Dr. Seo, the neurologist who had been treating him for 3 years. I felt it, Sun-woo whispered, clutching the edge of his desk. Seo, I felt everything. That's... Mr. Baek, we've discussed phantom sensations. The nerve damage from the poisoning is extensive. Sometimes the brain creates. It wasn't phantom. Sun-woo roared, the sound echoing off the glass walls. I felt my manhood. I haven't felt my manhood in 3 years until I met her. Just now. She walked in, and I woke up. I am hard, doctor. I am in pain. Explain that. Silence on the line. A long, stunned silence. That is medically impossible, Dr. Seo finally said. Unless it is psychological. Unless she is a specific trigger. Who is she? Sun-woo looked at the door where she had just exited. He could still smell her vanilla scent. She's the cure, Sun-woo said, hanging up. He turned to the window, watching the city below. He felt like a starving man who had just been shown a banquet. He was going to consume her. He had no other choice. The first week was a blur of high-stakes negotiations, endless paperwork, and a silent, thrumming tension that filled the executive suite like gas waiting for a match. Lola was efficient, brilliant even. She organized his chaotic schedule with a calm precision that impressed him. She handled the temperamental board members with a smile that hid daggers. But for Sun-woo, it was torture. Every time she walked into his office to place a document on his desk, her presence assaulted his senses. He found himself watching her through the glass partition that separated his office from her desk. He watched the way she bit her lip when she was concentrating. He watched the way she stretched her arms over her head when she thought no one was looking, the fabric of her blouse pulling tight across her chest. Every movement she made sent a fresh wave of sensation through his body. It was exhausting. He was constantly fighting his own biology, constantly adjusting his suit, constantly needing to step into his private bathroom to splash cold water on his face. By Friday evening, the office had emptied out. The sun had set, painting the Seoul skyline in hues of indigo and electric neon. Lola was still at her desk, typing furiously. Sun-woo watched her for a long moment. He made a decision. He pressed the intercom button. "Miss Vance." "My office." Lola appeared a moment later, a pen tucked behind her ear, looking tired but alert. "Yes, sir. Is there something you need before I leave?" Sun-woo stood by the window, his hands in his pockets to hide the fact that they wanted to reach out and touch her. "Tomorrow, I have a dinner with the Osaka Investment Group. It is a critical merger. I have the files prepared on your desk, sir. You will attend." Lola blinked. "Tomorrow is Saturday, sir. Is that a problem?" He turned to face her, his face a mask of indifference. "No, just clarifying. I thought you usually attended these dinners alone. The Osaka group is traditional. They expect a full entourage. And I need someone to take notes who actually understands the nuances of the deal. I will pick you up at 7 a.m. We have preparation to do before the evening. You don't need to pick me up, Mr. Baek. I can take the subway to the office." "I am not asking, Lola." It was the first time he had used her first name. It rolled off his tongue like dark honey, intimate, heavy. Lola's breath hitched visibly. 7 a.m., he repeated. "Send me your address." The next morning, the sun was barely peeking over the horizon when Sun-woo's black Mercedes, a sleek beast of German engineering, pulled up to the curb of a modest apartment building in Mapo-gu. It was a working-class neighborhood, far from the luxury of Gangnam where he lived. He saw her waiting by the entrance. She was wrapped in a beige trench coat against the morning chill, shivering slightly. Sun-woo felt that familiar, miraculous surge of heat just seeing her. He killed the engine and got out. He walked around the car and opened the passenger door for her. Lola froze, her hand halfway to the handle. She looked at him, then at the open door. "Mr. Baek, you have a driver for this. You shouldn't be opening doors for me." "Today I drive," he said simply. "Get in." She slid into the passenger seat, and he closed the door with a solid thud. When he got in the driver's side, the car suddenly felt very small. The leather interior smelled of cedar, expensive cologne, and him. As he navigated the morning traffic, the silence in the car was heavy. Lola stared out the window, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Why Korea?" he asked suddenly, breaking the silence. Lola jumped slightly. "Sir, you told me you wanted adventure. That is a rehearsed answer for an interview. I want the truth. Why did you move halfway across the world, away from your home?" Lola hesitated. She picked at a loose thread on her coat button. "My mother," she finally said, her voice soft. She's ill. It's an autoimmune condition. The treatments in London are available, but the waiting lists are long, and the private specialists are expensive. I have student loans, debts. The salary you offered, Mr. Baek, it's not just a salary to me." She looked at him then, her eyes vulnerable. "It pays for her treatment. It keeps a roof over her head. I'm here because I need to save her." Sun-woo tightened his grip on the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. He understood duty. He understood sacrificing yourself for family. He had given up his soul, his body, his life for the Baek Empire. "You're a good daughter," he said, his voice low. "I'm a tired daughter," she admitted with a small, sad smile. "But we do what we must." "You won't have to worry about the debts again," he said. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a statement of fact. "Sir, focus on the merger today," he deflected. "Prove to me you are worth the investment." The day was spent in the boardroom, prepping strategy. Lola was sharp, catching errors in the Japanese contracts that even his legal team had missed. She was formidable. But as evening approached, Sun-woo's mood darkened as he looked at her. She was wearing a simple gray suit. Practical. Boring. Invisible. You can't wear that to dinner, he stated bluntly, closing the file. Lola looked down at her clothes, confused. It's professional. It's what I wear to work. It's invisible. Tonight, you are representing Baek Corporation. You need to be seen. You need to command the room just by entering it. He stood up, grabbing his coat. Come. Come where? Shopping. He took her to Cheongdam-dong, to a boutique that didn't have a name on the door, only a golden bell. The staff greeted Sun-woo with deep bows. He didn't waste time. He walked through the racks of designer silk and velvet, dismissing them one by one. Then he stopped. He pulled a dress from the rack. It was a deep, shimmering violet silk. It was sleeveless, with a neckline that plunged just enough to be dangerous, and a slit that would showcase her legs. This one, he said, handing it to her. Mr. Baek, I can't afford a button on this dress. This brand, this costs more than my rent. It is a uniform required for the job. The company pays. He shoved the hanger into her hand, his eyes burning into hers. Put it on. Do not argue. Lola swallowed hard and went into the dressing room. Sun-woo waited, pacing the floor. His heart was racing. He felt like a teenager waiting for a prom date, not a mafia boss waiting for his secretary. The curtain swept back. Sun-woo stopped breathing. Lola stood there, and she was a vision. The violet silk clung to her curves like liquid night, highlighting the richness of her skin. The dress hugged her waist, her hips, her chest, celebrating every inch of her. She looked like a queen. She looked like a goddess. Is it too much? Lola asked, self-conscious under his intense, unblinking gaze. She smoothed her hands over her hips. I feel exposed. Sun-woo stepped closer, unable to stop himself. The heat in his body was a roaring fire now. He could smell her vanilla scent amplified by the heat of her skin. It is not too much, he rasped, his voice dropping an octave. It is exactly enough. You are perfect. Lola blushed, a dark flush spreading across her cheeks. Thank you, son, Mr. Baek. Let's go, he said, turning away quickly before he did something reckless, like fall to his knees and worship her right there in the boutique. We have a merger to close. The dinner was held at a private ryotei, a traditional Japanese restaurant hidden in the hills of Seoul. The Osaka investors were 3 older men, stern-faced and traditional. They looked at Sun-woo with respect, but when their eyes landed on Lola, there was dismissal. The dinner was a battlefield of subtle insults and hard negotiations. They spoke rapidly in Japanese, assuming the foreign girl couldn't understand. They made comments about her appearance, about her being a distraction for Mr. Baek. Lola sat quietly, pouring tea, her face serene. Sun-woo's anger was building. He was about to snap, to flip the table and end the deal, when the lead investor, Mr. Tanaka, laughed. She is very decorative, Baek-san, Tanaka said in Japanese, smirking. Like a vase. Good to look at, but empty inside. Sun-woo's hand went to his water glass, his grip lethal. But before he could move, Lola set the teapot down with a sharp clatter. She turned to Mr. Tanaka. Her expression was pleasant, but her eyes were cold fire. Mr. Tanaka, she said, speaking in flawless, elegant, high-formal Japanese. A vase does not understand the liquidity ratios of your subsidiary in Busan. A vase does not know that you are leveraging debt to hide your losses in the tech sector. And a vase certainly wouldn't advise Mr. Baek to walk away from this deal unless you lower your asking price by 15%. Shall we discuss paragraph 4, or shall I go back to being decorative? The table went dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. Tanaka's mouth hung open. The other 2 investors looked at Lola with wide eyes. Sun-woo froze. Then, slowly, a smirk tugged at the corner of his lips. It was the first genuine smile he had felt in 3 years. She is right, Sun-woo said, leaning back and looking at Lola with blatant pride. My secretary is not a vase. She is the one holding the hammer. 15%, Tanaka. Or we leave. They got the deal. In the car on the way back, the energy between them was no longer just tension. It was electric. The air was thick with adrenaline and unspoken desire. It was raining now, soft droplets streaking the windows, creating a cocoon of intimacy. Sun-woo drove with one hand, his other hand resting on the gear shift, inches from her knee. "You were magnificent," he said, his voice soft. "They were rude," Lola replied, looking out the window, though he could see her smiling in the reflection. "They were terrified. You emasculated him with polite grammar. I have never seen anything like it." He glanced at her. "Lola." "Yes, Mr. Baek?" "Sun-woo. We are not in the office. Call me Sun-woo." "I can't do that, sir." "Why?" He pulled the car over to the side of the road, near a quiet overlook of the river. He killed the engine. The rain drummed rhythmically on the roof. "Why do you insist on these walls?" "Because you are my boss," Lola said, turning to him. "And I need this job." "And you are dangerous, Mr. Baek." "Dangerous." He unbuckled his seatbelt and shifted to face her. "You think I would hurt you?" "I think you could break my heart without even trying," she whispered. "I think you are a man who gets what he wants, and I am just the new novelty." "Novelty?" Sun-woo let out a bitter laugh. He reached out, his hand hovering near her face before gently tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers grazed her skin, and they both shivered. "Lola, look at me." She looked up, her dark eyes swimming with confusion and attraction. "I haven't felt alive in 3 years," he confessed, the words tearing out of him. "I was a corpse walking through a winter storm. I felt nothing. Taste, touch, desire, it was all gone. And then you walked in. You are the fire. You are the thaw. I can't stop thinking about you. I can't stop wanting you. It's not a novelty. It's survival." "Sun-woo, please." She breathed, her resistance crumbling. "I am going to court you," he announced, his voice regaining its command. "I am going to prove to you that this is real. I am going to make you mine." "That is harassment," she whispered weakly, though she didn't pull away when he leaned closer, his scent enveloping her. "It is pursuit," he corrected, his lips inches from hers. "And I never lose." Lola's heart pounded against her ribs. She should open the door. She should run. But the gravity of him was too strong. "Take me home," she managed to say. Sun-woo lingered for a second longer, his eyes searching hers, before he nodded. "As you wish. For tonight." The following week, the office turned into a theater of war, and the weapon of choice was romance. Baek Sun-woo did not know how to do things by halves. He was a man of extremes, extreme wealth, extreme violence, and now extreme devotion. He didn't just want to date Lola. He wanted to besiege her defenses until she had no choice but to surrender. Monday morning began not with a meeting, but with a cup. Lola arrived at her desk at 7:45 a.m., shaking the snow from her coat, to find a steaming cup of coffee waiting on her blotter. It wasn't the sludge from the break room machine. It was a takeaway cup from a boutique cafe across the city, the kind that had lines wrapping around the block. She picked it up. Written on the side in bold, sharp handwriting was, "Lola." She took a sip. It was perfect. A latte with oat milk, 2 pumps of vanilla, extra hot, with a dusting of cinnamon on top. Exactly how she liked it. Exactly how she had mentioned she liked it, once, in passing, 3 days ago during a frantic lunch break. She looked through the glass partition. Sun-woo was at his desk, typing on his laptop. He didn't look up, but she saw the ghost of a smirk playing on his lips. Tuesday brought breakfast. A delivery man in a tuxedo, actually in a tuxedo, arrived at the 55th floor carrying a bento box from the most exclusive bakery in Gangnam. Freshly baked croissants, exotic fruit that shouldn't be available in winter, and gimbap made with ingredients that probably cost more than her weekly grocery budget. "For Ms. Vance," the delivery man announced, loud enough for the entire open-plan office to hear. The whispers started. They were like the rustling of dry leaves, scratching at Lola's composure. Wednesday, the flowers arrived. They weren't roses. Sun-woo wouldn't send something so cliché. They were orchids, rare, dark purple orchids that looked like alien creatures, arranged in a vase of black crystal. They were stunning, architectural, and imposing. They took up half her desk. "This is ridiculous," Lola muttered, burying her face in her hands. Her heart was doing somersaults, but her brain was screaming danger. She looked up to find Ms. Pyo standing over her. The office manager's face was unreadable. "Mr. Baek has never sent flowers to anyone," Ms. Pyo said, her voice devoid of its usual sharpness. In 10 years, I have never seen him send a single petal. Be careful, Ms. Vance. He is a man of great intensity. Do not play games with him. I'm not playing games, Lola whispered. I'm trying to do my job. Then you are the only one working, Ms. Pyo said, glancing toward the CEO's office. Because he is certainly not focusing on shipping logistics. By Friday, Lola was fraying at the edges. It was hard to be cold to a man who looked at her as if she were the sun and he was a planet caught in her gravity. It was hard to maintain professional boundaries when the man who signed her paychecks was actively trying to seduce her with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. She marched into his office at lunch, not bothering to knock. Sun-woo looked up from his computer, surprised but pleased. Lola, to what do I owe the pleasure? You have to stop, she said, her voice shaking slightly. She closed the door behind her and leaned against it for support. Sun-woo stood up, buttoning his suit jacket. Stop what? The gifts. The coffee. The food. The staring. It's making it impossible to work. Everyone is talking. They think I'm sleeping with you. Are they? Sun-woo moved around his desk, approaching her slowly. I can correct them. I can tell them that you are tragically not sleeping with me yet, but that I am working on it. This isn't funny, Sun-woo. You are my boss. This is harassment. It's inappropriate. Then quit. Lola blinked, the wind knocked out of her sails. Excuse me. Quit, he said calmly, stopping just inches from her. Resign. I will accept your resignation effective immediately. I will give you 6 months severance pay. I will write you a recommendation letter that will get you a job at any firm in Seoul, Samsung, LG, Hyundai. Take your pick. I will make sure you are employed by Monday morning. You want to fire me? Lola asked, bewildered. I thought you said I was brilliant. You are brilliant. You are essential. But you're right. I cannot date my secretary. It is a violation of power dynamics. So, I am removing the obstacle. He placed his hands on the door on either side of her head, caging her in without touching her. His body heat radiated into hers, a warm, magnetic pull. If you are not my employee, then I am just a man asking a beautiful woman to dinner. And you are free to say yes without fearing for your job. So, Lola Vance, will you quit? The sheer audacity of it left her speechless. He was willing to lose his best employee just to take her on a date. It was insane. It was illogical. It was the most romantic thing she had ever heard. Before she could answer, the office door pushed inward, bumping against Lola's back. She stumbled forward, colliding with Sun-woo's chest. His arms wrapped around her instantly, steadying her, holding her tight against his hard frame. Oh, I am so sorry. They broke apart to see Director Kim standing in the doorway, holding a stack of files. Kim was young, handsome in a K-pop idol sort of way, with a charming smile that usually melted hearts in the accounting department. I didn't realize you were occupied, Kim stammered, looking between the two of them. His eyes lingered on Lola, appreciative and friendly. Lola, you look lovely today. That color suits you. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Sun-woo released Lola and stepped in front of her, shielding her from Kim's view. His posture shifted from lover to predator in a nanosecond. Director Kim, Sun-woo said, his voice dropping to a subsonic growl. Yes, sir. Kim froze, sensing the danger. Get out. Sir? The files for the... Leave the files on the floor. Get out. And if you ever speak to her with that familiarity again, if you ever look at her like that again, you will be working in the mailroom of our Antarctica branch. Do you understand? Kim turned pale. He dropped the files on the carpet, bowed frantically, and scrambled out of the room, closing the door softly. Sun-woo turned back to Lola. His eyes were dark, swirling with a possessiveness that should have terrified her. He was just being nice, Lola whispered, her heart racing. I don't care, Sun-woo snapped. I don't share, Lola. Not your smiles, not your time, not you. You think I am irrational? You have no idea. I have starved for 3 years. Now that I have found food, do not expect me to let anyone else near the table. He took a deep breath, visibly trying to rein in his temper. He reached out and took her hand, bringing it to his lips. He kissed her knuckles, his eyes never leaving hers. Dinner. Tonight. Say yes, or I will buy the restaurant and make it a mandatory staff meeting of 2. Lola looked up into his eyes, seeing the raw vulnerability beneath the command. She saw a man who was terrified of losing the one thing that made him feel human. Fine, she whispered. One dinner. But I'm not quitting yet. Sun-woo smirked, the expression transforming his face from terrifying to breathtaking. We'll see about that. Wear the purple dress. That night, he took her to Jungsik, a 2-Michelin-star restaurant in Cheongdam. But he didn't take her to the main dining room. He led her to a private glass box on the roof, reserved entirely for them. The city of Seoul lay spread out beneath them like a carpet of diamonds, glittering in the cold night. Over courses of food she couldn't pronounce, sea urchin with crispy quinoa, galbi that melted on the tongue, Sun-woo dismantled her defenses. He didn't talk about business. He didn't check his phone. He focused on her with an intensity that was unnerving. Tell me about the painting, he said, pouring her more vintage wine. Lola paused, her fork halfway to her mouth. How do you know about that? I read your file. You applied to art school in London before you switched to business. Why did you stop? It wasn't practical, Lola admitted, looking out at the city lights. My mother got sick. Art supplies are expensive. Tuition is expensive. I needed a job that paid. So, I put away the brushes and picked up spreadsheets. What did you paint? People. Emotions. The way light changes how we see things. She smiled wistfully. I wanted to capture the things we don't say. Paint for me, Sun-woo said softly. What? Paint again. I will build you a studio. I will buy you every canvas in Korea. Paint what you see. Because you have given me color again, Lola. It is only fair you capture it. The offer was so generous, so intimate, it brought tears to her eyes. Sun-woo, you can't just fix everyone's life with money. Why not? What is the point of having an empire if I cannot lay it at your feet? After dinner, he didn't drive her home. He drove to the Han River, to the most exclusive residential tower in the city. The penthouse. Just for a drink, he promised as they rode the private elevator up. I want to show you the view. But when the doors opened, Lola wasn't looking at the view. She was looking at his home. It was magnificent, floor-to-ceiling windows, Italian leather furniture, modern art worth millions. But it was cold. It felt like a museum, not a home. There were no personal photos. No clutter. No warmth. It's impressive, she said, walking to the window. It's a tomb, Sun-woo corrected, coming up behind her. He didn't touch her, but she could feel his heat. I haven't brought a woman here in 3 years. This is my sanctuary of silence. But having you here, it feels like the lights have finally been turned on. Lola turned to face him. The city lights haloed his silhouette. He looked tragic and beautiful. Tell me, she whispered. Tell me what happened 3 years ago. The truth. Sun-woo's jaw tightened. He walked to the bar and poured a glass of water, his hands shaking slightly. I have enemies, Lola. Powerful ones. 3 years ago, our rival gang leader named Jang Do-han invited me to a peace summit. I drank the tea. It was laced with a neurotoxin, something experimental from the north. He took a sip of water, staring into the glass. It was meant to kill me. My security got me to the hospital in time to save my life, but the damage was done. The toxin targeted the central nervous system. It shut down the receptors for pleasure, for desire. He looked up at her, his eyes hollow with the memory of that pain. I woke up in that hospital bed, and I was numb. The doctors poked me with needles, and I felt pressure, but no pain. They showed me images, played music, nothing. And below the waist? Dead. I was impotent, Lola. I was a 30-year-old man who had been castrated by chemistry. The doctors said it was permanent. They said I would never feel desire again. Never have a normal relationship. Never father children. Lola gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Oh, Sun-woo. I accepted it, he said, his voice hardening. I buried myself in work. I built that corp into a fortress. I became the Ice Prince. If I couldn't be a man, I would be a god. I would be untouchable. He set the glass down and walked toward her, his steps deliberate, predatory, desperate. And then, you. He stopped inches from her. He reached out and cupped her face. His hands were large, warm, calloused from years of handling weapons before he handled pens. The morning you walked into my office, I didn't just see you. I felt you. It started in my chest, a burning ache. And then it shot down. It was agonizing, Lola. It was the most painful, beautiful thing I have ever felt. My body woke up. My manhood woke up. It recognized you. It screamed for you. Sun-woo, she breathed, tears slipping down her cheeks. The doctors can't explain it, he whispered, wiping her tear away with his thumb. They say it's medically impossible. But I don't care about science. I know the truth. You are my miracle. You are the cure. He leaned his forehead against hers. I am terrified, Lola. I am terrified that if you leave, I will go back to sleep. I will go back to the cold. Don't let me go back. I won't, she promised, her voice trembling. I'm here. He kissed her then. It wasn't like the kiss in the car. This was a claiming. It was a surrender. His lips were demanding, hungry, tasting of wine and desperation. Lola gasped, opening for him, and he groaned a low, guttural sound that vibrated in her chest. He swept her up into his arms, carrying her effortlessly toward the bedroom. Lola wrapped her legs around his waist, burying her hands in his thick hair. The world tilted and narrowed down to this man, this heat, this moment. He laid her on the massive bed, the sheets cool against her back. He hovered over her, looking at her as if she were a holy relic he wasn't sure he was allowed to touch. Are you sure? He asked, his voice rough. If we do this, there is no going back. You become mine. I become yours. I will not let you go easily. I don't want to go, Lola whispered, reaching up to undo his tie. He undressed her slowly, reverently. He kissed every inch of skin he exposed, her collarbone, the swell of her breast, the curve of her hip, her thick thighs. He murmured praises in Korean, words she didn't understand but felt in her soul. Yepuda. Sarangi. Naekyo. Beautiful. I love you. Mine. When she was bare before him, she felt a moment of shame. She wasn't a stick-thin model. She had rolls when she sat. She had stretch marks. She tried to cover herself. Sun-woo gently pulled her hands away. Don't, he commanded softly. You are a masterpiece. Do not hide the art. He stripped off his own clothes, revealing a body carved from granite, scarred in places, a knife wound on his ribs, a bullet grazed on his shoulder. Evidence of the violent life he led. He settled between her legs, and the reality of his size, of his recovery, pressed against her. He was hard, heavy, and very, very ready. Lola, he gasped, his forehead resting against hers. I need you to know. I haven't, since the accident. This is my first time. In 3 years. I might be fast. I might be clumsy. But I will worship you. We have all night, she soothed, running her hands down his back. He entered her slowly, watching her face for any sign of discomfort. When he was fully sheathed inside her, he stopped, throwing his head back with a cry that was half sob, half ecstasy. He was trembling violently. I feel it, he choked out, tears squeezing from his shut eyes. I feel you. I feel everything. He began to move, and it was the most emotional, intense experience of Lola's life. He wasn't just having sex. He was reclaiming his humanity. He kissed her deeply, drinking her moans, his rhythm steady and powerful. You fixed me, he whispered against her lips. You brought me back. When the end came, it shattered them both. Sun-woo collapsed on top of her, his breathing ragged, his heart hammering against hers. He held her so tight she could barely breathe, but she didn't mind. She felt safe. She felt cherished. They fell asleep tangled together, limbs woven like vines. But in the cold light of 4 a.m., reality crept back in for Lola. She lay awake, listening to the steady rhythm of Sun-woo's breathing. She looked around the opulent bedroom, the expensive art, the discard of her simple clothes next to his bespoke suit. The fear hit her like a bucket of ice water. What have I done? He was a mafia boss. A billionaire. A man with enemies who used neurotoxins. And she was nobody. She was a secretary with debt. He said he loved her. He said she was his cure. But what happened when the novelty wore off? What happened when he realized he was healed and he could have any woman in Seoul? What happened when his enemies decided to target his new weakness? She was in over her head. She was going to get hurt. Or worse, she was going to get him hurt. Panic, irrational and overwhelming, seized her. Slowly, carefully, she extricated herself from his arms. He grumbled in his sleep, reaching for her, but she placed a pillow in her spot. He hugged the pillow, sighing contentedly. Lola dressed in the dark, her hands shaking. She found a notepad on the nightstand. She wanted to write a letter, to explain, but what could she say? I love you, but I'm terrified? She wrote nothing. She crumpled the paper and left it. She slipped out of the penthouse, took the service elevator down, and hailed a taxi. As the car pulled away, she looked up at the OBS tower, disappearing into the morning mist. She cried all the way back to her tiny apartment. Sun-woo woke at 7 a.m. He reached out, expecting warm silk and soft skin. His hand found the cold pillow. Lola? He sat up, blinking against the morning light. The room was empty. The bathroom door was open dark. Lola. He threw the covers off, naked and panicked. He checked the closet. Her clothes were gone. He checked the living room. Gone. She had left. The silence of the penthouse, which had once been his sanctuary, now roared in his ears. It was the silence of the grave. She had run. She had given him everything, healed him, loved him, and then she had run. Why? Had he been too rough? Had he scared her? Had he said too much? A dark, cold rage began to bubble in his chest, not at her, but at the circumstance. He had finally found the light, and the universe was trying to snatch it away. He grabbed his phone. He dialed his head of security. Sir? The voice was groggy. Find Lola Vance, Sun-woo barked, his voice cracking. I want her location now. Do not call her. Do not alert her. Just find her. Sir, is she a threat? She is my life. Sun-woo roared. Get the car ready. I am coming down. He dressed in 3 minutes. He didn't bother with a tie. He didn't bother with his hair. He looked like a madman, a king whose crown had been stolen. 20 minutes later, his Mercedes screeched to a halt in front of her apartment building. He didn't buzz. He didn't call. He stormed up the stairs to the 3rd floor and pounded on door 302. Lola. Open the door. Silence. He pounded again, harder. Lola, I know you're in there. I can hear you crying. Open this door or I will kick it off its hinges. A latch clicked. The door cracked open. Lola stood there, wrapped in a fluffy bathrobe, her eyes red and swollen, her hair a mess. She looked broken. Sun-woo's anger vanished instantly, replaced by a crushing wave of relief and heartache. Why? He breathed, pushing the door open and stepping inside. He kicked it shut behind him. Why did you leave? Lola backed away, hugging herself. Because this is crazy, Sun-woo. Last night, it was beautiful. But it was a fantasy. Look at you. Look at me. I'm a secretary. You're the king of Seoul. So, people like you don't stay with people like me. You think I'm a miracle now because I fixed you. But what happens when you're used to being fixed? What happens when you realize I'm just ordinary? Ordinary? Sun-woo crossed the small room in 2 strides. He grabbed her shoulders, his grip bruising in its intensity. You think you're ordinary? You brought a dead man back to life, Lola. You are a witch. You are a goddess. You are the only thing in this world that matters to me. You're just obsessed, she sobbed. Yes, I am obsessed. He shook her slightly. I am obsessed with your laugh. I am obsessed with your skin. I am obsessed with the way you make me feel like a man again. And I will stay obsessed until the day I die. He dropped to his knees in front of her, wrapping his arms around her waist, burying his face in her stomach. Please, he wept, the great Mafia boss begging in a cramped apartment. Please don't leave me. I can't go back to the numbness. I can't. It will kill me. Lola looked down at him. She saw the raw terror in his posture. She realized then that he wasn't playing a game. He wasn't using her. He needed her just as much as she needed him. She sank to the floor, wrapping her arms around his neck. Okay, she whispered into his hair. I'm sorry. I got scared. I won't run again. Sun-woo pulled back, framing her face with his hands. Promise me. If you are scared, tell me. If you are angry, hit me. But never leave. Never take yourself away from me. I promise, she said. He kissed her, tasting her tears and his own. It was a salty, messy, desperate kiss that sealed their fate. Come home, he said against her lips. Pack your things. You are moving in. Sun-woo, that's too fast. We've been dating for 12 hours. I don't care. I am not spending another night without you. I will sleep on the couch if you want. But I need you under my roof where I know you are safe. Where I know you are mine. Lola laughed, a wet, shaky sound. You are impossible. I am in love, he corrected. The reconciliation was swift, absolute, and publicly declared. Sun-woo didn't just help her pack. He supervised the packing like a military operation, ensuring her art supplies were treated with more care than nuclear codes. When they arrived back at the OBS tower, he didn't lead her to the guest room. He led her to the master suite. This side of the closet is yours, he said, gesturing to a space larger than her entire London flat. I had the tailor come while you were packing. He will fill it by tomorrow. Sun-woo, I have clothes. You have work clothes. Now you will have life clothes. But the real surprise was the room down the hall. He opened the door to what used to be a secondary conference room. It had been stripped bare. The floor was covered in protective drop cloths. Easels of varying sizes stood like sentinels by the north-facing windows, which offered the best natural light in Seoul. Piles of high-grade canvases, paints, brushes, and charcoals were stacked neatly on tables. Lola gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. You did this? I told you, he murmured, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. You gave me color. I want you to use it. Paint, Lola. Paint while I destroy my enemies in the boardroom. Knowing you are creating something beautiful just down the hall, it will keep me sane. Lola turned in his arms and kissed him, a kiss full of gratitude and wonder. Thank you. It's perfect. Life fell into a rhythm that was both domestic and dazzling. Mornings were spent tangled in high thread count sheets, Sun-woo's hands learning every inch of her body with an insatiable hunger. He was making up for 3 lost years with a stamina that often left them both breathless and late for work. The drives to the office were no longer silent. They held hands over the center console, Sun-woo driving with a relaxed confidence that was new. But the office itself, that was a battlefield. On Monday morning, the rumors had mutated from whispers into a roar. As they walked through the lobby, Sun-woo's hand rested possessively on the small of Lola's back. He guided her to the executive elevator, ignoring the stares of the staff. In the morning briefing, the atmosphere was suffocating. The department heads were all stealing glances at Lola, who sat to Sun-woo's right, taking notes. Midway through a presentation on logistics, a junior executive named Mr. Choi leaned over to his neighbor. He thought he was whispering, but in the acoustic perfection of the boardroom, his voice carried. Must be nice, Choi sneered. Sleeping your way to the executive suite. I wonder what tricks the foreigner used. The silence that followed was instant and terrifying. Sun-woo didn't shout. He didn't slam his hand on the table. He simply stopped swiping through the projection slides. He slowly took off his glasses and set them on the mahogany table with a soft click. Mr. Choi, Sun-woo said. His voice was soft, conversational, which made it infinitely more frightening. Why, yes, sir. Choi went pale, realizing his mistake. Pack your things. Sir, it was a joke. I didn't mean. You insulted Ms. Vance, Sun-woo said, standing up. He looked 10 feet tall. You insulted my partner. You insulted the woman who holds my trust. Do you think I allow disrespect in my house? Sir, please, I have a family. Then you should have thought about them before you opened your mouth. You are fired. If you are not out of the building in 10 minutes, security will throw you out. And Choi, if I hear you speak her name again, anywhere in the city, I will ensure you never work in Korea again. Choi fled the room, practically in tears. Sun-woo looked around the table at the remaining terrified executives. Let us be clear, he announced, his gaze sweeping over them like a searchlight. Miss Vance is my girlfriend. She is also the most competent person in this room. Anyone who has a problem with either of those facts can tender their resignation now." No one moved. "Good," Sun-woo said, sitting back down. "Continue the presentation." Lola stared at him, her heart pounding. His arrogance should have been repulsive. Instead, the sheer force of his protection made her feel cherished in a way she had never experienced. He was a monster, yes, but he was her monster. That evening, Lola decided to cook. She banned Sun-woo from the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of wine and turning up Afrobeats on the sound system. She made jollof rice, the recipe passed down from her Nigerian grandmother, tweaking it with the ingredients she could find in Seoul. Sun-woo sat at the island, watching her dance while she chopped onions. He looked mesmerized. "It smells spicy," he noted, eyeing the Scotch bonnet peppers. "It's got soul, Sun-woo. Something this penthouse is missing." She plated the red, fragrant rice with grilled chicken and plantains. "Try it." He took a bite. His eyes widened. He coughed, reaching for his water, but then he took another bite. And another. "It burns," he wheezed, smiling. "But it is delicious. It tastes like heat." "It tastes like home," Lola corrected. "You are my home," he said, the sentiment so raw it made her chest ache. "I never had a home, Lola. Just houses. Just headquarters. You are the first place I have ever wanted to stay." 3 months passed in a blur of happiness. Lola painted, Sun-woo ruled. They traveled to Jeju Island for a weekend, where they made love on a private beach under the stars. They went to Paris for a business trip that involved zero business and a lot of room service. Lola's mother, Mrs. Vance, flew in from London for a visit. Lola was terrified. Her mother was a strict, no-nonsense woman who had raised Lola to be independent. What would she think of the Mafia boss? Sun-woo was nervous. He changed his outfit 5 times before going to the airport. "Do I look respectable?" he asked, adjusting his tie. "You look like you own the airport, which you probably do," Lola teased, kissing his cheek. "Just be yourself. Maybe the softer version." But she needn't have worried. Sun-woo charmed Mrs. Vance within 5 minutes. He didn't try to impress her with money, he impressed her with respect. He bowed deeply. He carried her bags. He had learned how to brew proper English tea, and he served it to her himself in the penthouse. He listened to Mrs. Vance's stories about Lola's childhood with genuine fascination. "She was always stubborn," Mrs. Vance said, sipping her Earl Grey. "Always wanted to paint the sky purple instead of blue." "She sees the world differently," Sun-woo agreed, his eyes finding Lola across the room. "She sees beauty where others see nothing." Later that night, Mrs. Vance pulled Lola into the kitchen. "He is dangerous, Lola," she whispered. "I can see it in his eyes. He has seen things. Done things." "I know, Mama." But Mrs. Vance sighed, smiling. "He looks at you like you hung the moon. He looks at you like he would burn the world to keep you warm. That is rare, child. That is a once-in-a-lifetime love. Don't let fear make you run from it." "I won't," Lola promised. "But fear has a way of finding you, even in a penthouse in the sky." It was a Tuesday 4 months into their relationship. The honeymoon phase had settled into a deep, comfortable love. Sun-woo had stepped back from the darker side of his business, delegating the violence to his lieutenants, trying to legitimize Baek Corp fully. He wanted a clean life for Lola. But the past is a sticky thing. Lola was working late at the gallery Sun-woo had helped her open in Itaewon. She was preparing for her first solo exhibition. The theme was Resurrection, a series of abstract portraits capturing the return of feeling. It was 9 p.m. Rain slicked the streets of Seoul, turning the neon signs into blurred watercolors. Lola locked the glass doors of the gallery and turned to walk toward the waiting car. Sun-woo's driver, Mr. Han, was usually parked right in front. But tonight, the spot was empty. Lola frowned, checking her phone. No messages. A black van screeched around the corner, mounting the curb. The side door slid open with a metallic rasp. Before Lola could scream, 3 men in masks poured out. She tried to run, dropping her keys, but they were too fast. A hand clamped over her mouth, tasting of leather and chemicals. Strong arms seized her waist, lifting her off her feet. She kicked, connecting with a shin, but then she felt a sharp prick in her neck. A needle. Cold fire flooded her veins. Her vision blurred instantly. The neon lights elongated into streaks of light. The sounds of the city warped into a low drone. She was thrown into the back of the van. The door slammed shut, sealing her in darkness. Sun-woo, she thought, her mind fading to black. He promised he would come. At Baek Corp, the board meeting was dragging on. Sun-woo was bored. He was checking his watch, calculating how long it would take to get to the gallery, pick up Lola, and take her to get late-night noodles. The conference room door burst open. It wasn't a polite entry. It was a breach. Mr. Han, his driver, stumbled in. He was bleeding from a gash on his forehead. Behind him was the head of security, pale as a sheet. "Sir," the security chief gasped. "We have a situation." Sun-woo went still. The air in the room didn't just drop, it vanished. The predator, the monster he had been suppressing for months, woke up instantly. "Speak," Sun-woo commanded. "The gallery." Mr. Han was ambushed. They took her. Sun-woo didn't blink. He didn't breathe. "Who?" "We are reviewing the traffic cams. It looks like Jang Do-han's men. The remnants of the northern faction." The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush bones. The board members shrank in their seats, terrified of the aura radiating from their CEO. Sun-woo stood up. He calmly unbuttoned his suit jacket and draped it over his chair. He rolled up his pristine white sleeves, revealing the Rolex on his wrist and the scars on his forearms. "Meeting adjourned," he said. "Sir, the merger vote," a brave soul started. Sun-woo turned his head slowly. His eyes were dead. The light Lola had put there was gone, replaced by a black hole of violence. "If you speak to me about money right now," Sun-woo said softly, "I will throw you out of that window." He walked out of the conference room. He didn't run. Kings don't run. They march to war. He went down to the basement, to a room that didn't exist on the building blueprints. His lieutenants were already assembling, checking magazines on semi-automatic rifles, sharpening knives. "We have a location?" Sun-woo asked, picking up a heavy pistol. He checked the chamber. Loaded. Warehouse district in Incheon. Abandoned textile factory. Heat signatures confirmed 12 hostiles. 1 hostage. Jang Do-han. Confirmed on site. Sun-woo holstered the gun. He looked at his men, 50 of the most dangerous individuals in South Korea. "Jang Do-han poisoned me 3 years ago," Sun-woo addressed them, his voice echoing in the concrete bunker. "He took my life without killing me. Now he has taken my heart. He has taken my wife." He hadn't proposed yet. But in his soul, she was already his wife. "We are not going to arrest them," Sun-woo continued, his face a mask of cold fury. "We are not going to negotiate. We are going to burn it down. Every single one of them dies tonight. If anyone stands between me and her, kill them. If the police come, stall them. Nothing stops us." "Yes, boss," 50 voices roared in unison. "Let's go get her." Lola woke up to the smell of rust and damp concrete. Her head was pounding like a drum. She tried to move her hands, but they were zip-tied behind her back to a metal chair. She blinked her eyes open. She was in a large, cavernous warehouse. The only light came from a single hanging bulb that swayed gently, casting long, dancing shadows. "She's awake." A man stepped into the light. He was older, with a face that looked like it had been put together wrong. A jagged scar ran from his eye to his jaw. He wore a cheap suit and a cruel smile. "Jang Do-han," Lola whispered. Sun-woo had told her the name. "The man who poisoned him." "Smart girl," Do-han sneered. He circled her like a shark. "You must be special. My spies tell me the ice prince is melting. They tell me he is buying flowers, cooking rice, playing house." He leaned in close, his breath smelling of stale tobacco. 3 years ago, I broke him. I took his manhood. I made him a eunuch. It was the perfect revenge. He had the crown, but he couldn't produce an heir. He couldn't enjoy his women. He was suffering. Do-han grabbed Lola's chin, forcing her to look at him. "But you fixed him. How? Was it magic? Or are you just that good in bed?" Lola spat in his face. Do-han wiped the saliva away slowly. He didn't look angry, he looked amused. He backhanded her. The force of the blow snapped Lola's head to the side. She tasted blood. "He will kill you," Lola rasped, looking back at him with defiant eyes. "He is coming. And he will kill you." "Let him come," Doohan laughed, spreading his arms. "I have 50 men outside. I have snipers on the roof. I want him to come. I want him to watch me break you, just like I broke him. Then, when he is weeping, I will finish the job." Hours passed. The cold seeped into Lola's bones. She tried to stay strong, tried to focus on the image of Sun-woo's face, on the warmth of his hands. "He is coming," he promised. Outside, the night exploded. It started with a low rumble, the sound of engines roaring. Then, the screech of tires. Then, the distinct, terrifying crack of automatic gunfire. The guards at the warehouse door shouted something, raising their weapons. The main metal doors of the warehouse didn't open. They were rammed. A reinforced SUV smashed through the corrugated metal, sending debris flying. It skidded to a halt in the center of the floor. Men in tactical black gear poured out, moving with lethal precision. Gunfire erupted, deafening and chaotic. Doohan grabbed Lola by the hair, dragging her chair backward, pulling a gun from his waistband and pressing it to her temple. "Stop!" Doohan screamed. "Or I blow her brains out." The firing stopped instantly. The silence was heavy with smoke and death. From the smoke near the SUV, a figure emerged. He wore a black suit, no tie. He held a pistol in each hand, hanging loosely at his sides. He walked calmly, stepping over the body of a fallen guard without looking down. It was Sun-woo. But it wasn't the Sun-woo Lola knew. This wasn't the man who cooked rice or panicked about what to wear for her mother. This was the devil of Seoul. His face was a mask of absolute, terrifying calm. He was splattered with blood that wasn't his. "Jang Doohan," Sun-woo said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried across the warehouse. "Stay back," Doohan yelled, pressing the gun harder against Lola's skin. She whimpered. Sun-woo's eyes flickered to her face. He saw the bruise on her cheek. He saw the blood on her lip. Something inside him snapped. The calm evaporated, replaced by a raw, nuclear rage. "You touched her," Sun-woo said. It was a statement of disbelief. "I let you live 3 years ago. I let you breathe my air. And you touched her. I'll kill her." Doohan shrieked, his hand shaking. "Drop the guns. Drop them." Sun-woo didn't drop the guns. He kept walking forward. "Shoot her," Sun-woo challenged, his voice cold as ice. "Go ahead. But know this, if she dies, you do not die today. If she dies, I will keep you alive in a basement for 50 years. I will peel the skin from your body 1 inch at a time. I will make you beg for hell." Doohan hesitated. The sheer weight of Sun-woo's malice was paralyzing. In that split second of hesitation, a red laser dot appeared on Doohan's forehead. Sun-woo hadn't come alone. Thwip. A single shot from the sniper on the adjacent roof, firing through the skylight. Doohan's head snapped back. The gun fell from his hand. He crumpled to the floor, dead before he hit the concrete. Lola screamed. Sun-woo dropped his guns. He sprinted the last 10 yards, sliding on his knees to reach her. He pulled a knife, slashing the zip ties in one motion. "Lola." She collapsed into him, sobbing uncontrollably. He caught her, crushing her to his chest, burying his face in her neck. He was shaking. The monster was gone, and the man was back, terrified, desperate, relieved. "I've got you," he chanted, rocking her back and forth. "I've got you. I'm here. Look at me, baby. Look at me." He pulled back, his hands framing her face, smearing blood on her skin, his enemy's blood. He checked her eyes, her head, her arms. Did they do anything else? Tell me. I will burn the world." "No," she choked out. "Just, he hit me. That's all. You came. "I told you," he wept, pressing his forehead to hers. "I would cross hell to find you. You are my life. Without you, I am just a corpse." He lifted her into his arms, carrying her bridal style toward the exit. His men formed a protective phalanx around them, guns facing outward. "Take us home," Sun-woo commanded his lieutenant. and burn this place to the ground. Leave nothing. As they drove away in the back of the armored SUV, Lola watched through the rear window as the warehouse erupted in flames, a funeral pyre for the past. She turned to Sun-woo. He was holding her hand so tight his knuckles were white. He wouldn't look away from her, as if blinking would make her disappear. "It's over," she whispered, leaning her head on his shoulder. "Yes," he agreed, kissing the top of her head. "The war is over. Now we live." The recovery was slow but steady. Sun-woo refused to leave the penthouse for 2 weeks. He worked from home, conducting meetings in the living room while Lola painted in the studio. He needed her within his line of sight at all times. He treated her bruises with expensive creams. He brushed her hair. He read to her at night when the nightmares came. One morning, a month after the kidnapping, the sun was shining brightly over Seoul. The winter had finally broken, giving way to a tentative spring. They were sitting on the balcony, drinking coffee. "Lola," Sun-woo said softly. She looked up from her sketchbook. He slid off his chair and onto one knee. Lola froze. Her heart skipped a beat. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small black velvet box. He opened it. Inside sat a diamond that looked like it had been cut from a star, pure, flawless, and blinding. "I know it's fast," Sun-woo said, his voice thick with emotion. "I know we have been through war. But I have never been more certain of anything. You brought me back to life, Lola. Literally and figuratively. I was a dead man walking before you. I felt nothing. I wanted nothing. Now, I feel too much. And I want to feel it with you forever." He took her hand, his thumb stroking her ring finger. "Be my wife. Let me protect you. Let me worship you. Let me give you the world." Tears streamed down Lola's face. She dropped her sketchbook. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes. 1,000 times yes." He slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. He stood and pulled her into a kiss that tasted of coffee and promise. "I love you, Mrs. Baek," he murmured against her lips. "I love you, Sun-woo." They were married 2 months later in a private ceremony at a beautiful hanok in Baeksun village. It was small, just close friends, her mother, and his most trusted men standing guard in tuxedos. Lola wore white lace that hugged every curve, custom-made to showcase the body that had woken a king. Sun-woo cried when he saw her walking down the aisle. The ice prince, weeping in front of his soldiers. He didn't care. His vows were simple. "You saved me when I didn't know I needed saving. You are my miracle. I will spend every day of forever showing you what that means." Her vows were equally powerful. "You taught me that home isn't a place, it's a person. You are my home, Sun-woo. You are my safe harbor." They honeymooned in the Maldives, 2 weeks of turquoise water, white sand, and no one else in their world. Sun-woo made love to his wife constantly, in the ocean, on the beach at sunset, in their private villa. He couldn't get enough of her. 6 months after the wedding, back in Seoul, life was blissful. But one morning, Lola felt off. The smell of Sun-woo's morning coffee, usually her favorite scent, made her stomach turn violently. She was exhausted, sleeping 10 hours a night. She checked her calendar. She was late. Very late. She bought a test on her way home from the gallery, hiding it in her purse. In the penthouse bathroom, she waited the longest 3 minutes of her life. Her hands shook as she picked up the stick. 2 pink lines. Positive. She sat on the bathroom floor, crying happy tears. A baby. They were having a baby. After everything, the poison, the doctors saying it was impossible, the violence, they were creating life. She waited for him to come home. That evening, Sun-woo walked in, looking tired but happy. He found the apartment lit by dozens of candles. Lola was standing by the window, wearing the purple dress from their first date. "What is this?" he asked, smiling, loosening his tie. "Are we celebrating?" "We are," she said, her eyes shining. She handed him a small, wrapped gift box. He opened it, confused. Inside was the pregnancy test and a handwritten note. He read the note aloud. "I haven't felt my manhood in 3 years until I met you. And now, look what we made." Sun-woo went still. He stared at the test. He looked at the note. He looked at her stomach. "Lola?" His voice cracked, barely a whisper. We're having a baby, Sun-woo. The dossier dropped from his other hand. The man who terrified nations fell to his knees. He crawled to her, wrapping his arms around her hips, pressing his face into her belly. His shoulders shook. He was sobbing. A deep, racking sound of pure, unadulterated joy. A baby, he choked out. My baby? Our baby? Yes, she cried, stroking his hair. The doctors were wrong. Love fixed what the poison broke. Thank you, he wept, kissing the fabric of her dress over her stomach. Thank you. You gave me everything. You gave me a future. The pregnancy was a time of golden joy. Sun-woo was obsessively protective. He hired a nutritionist. He read to her belly every night in Korean and English. Hannah, he decided one night, his hand resting on her kick bump. We will name her Hannah. Because she is the one. The first. The unity. Hannah Beck, Lola tested the name. It's beautiful. Labor came on a rainy night, just like the night they met. Sun-woo was a rock. He held her hand through 13 hours of pain, wiping her brow, letting her squeeze his fingers until they bruised. And then a cry. The doctor placed a tiny, squalling bundle on Lola's chest. A girl. She had a full head of dark hair and her mother's eyes. Sun-woo looked at his daughter and then at his wife. He leaned down and kissed Lola, a kiss full of salt and sweat and infinite love. She's perfect, he whispered. You're perfect. Lola smiled, exhausted but radiant. We made a family, Sun-woo. Yes, he said, touching his daughter's tiny hand with his finger. Her little fingers curled around his, gripping tight. Baek Sun-woo, the Mafia boss who was once dead to the world, the man who had been frozen in winter for 3 years, looked at his wife and his daughter, and felt the warmth of an eternal summer. I love you, he told them both. Forever. And for the first time in his life, he knew he had a future worth living for. This has been another Afro-Korean soul tale. If you believe that true love can heal even the deepest wounds, smash that like button, subscribe, and join our family. Because here, we don't just tell stories, we live them.